Okay, here we go. Today, I'd like to talk about the people that aren't here. You may be thinking we're going to hear some really good gossip now, but I'm not talking about the people that may have other obligations, or are not able to find a sitter, or the ones that just say that so they don't have to be here. I want to talk about the ones that aren't here today because they weren't invited, or even if they were invited, they might not be welcome here. I'm talking about the homeless, the mentally ill, the chronically addicted, the injured, the elderly, and the undocumented. These are people that have no place to stay, no way to support themselves. I don't want to talk about them in a gossip session, but rather talk about the reality of the problem that faces us today. Many times we see these people on our way to work or when we're out running errands. Often we, or at least I, think of them as people who don't want or to care for themselves. People that if they just did what we do, they would be all right. In other words, if they just pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, got themselves a job, saved some money, get themselves a place, then everything would go just as well for them as it does for the rest of us. I believe the problem is that we often forget that there's a large percentage of these people who simply can't do what we can do. They aren't able to participate in life and community and society in the same way as we are. This problem has been around since the founding of human societies. Certainly it is spoken about in the Bible. Jesus himself speaks about caring for the orphan and the widow. Yes, you might say orphans have no parents to care for them, and widows have no one to care for them either. You may even be saying to yourself that I help the single lady down the street. Maybe you take out the trash bins on trash day, or you help with the yard work, and those sorts of things. But a widow in the time of the Bible was something completely different. In that culture, once a woman no longer had a husband, she was no longer part of normal society. She was not allowed to work. She was not allowed to own property. In other words, she could not simply do what everyone else did to get along and survive. In the same sense, orphans were virtually non-human in biblical times. In the ancient Near Eastern culture, they were used as male and female temple prostitutes. They were bartered. They were sold as slaves. There was no way for them to simply do what everyone else did to survive. Only long-term foster care comes close to what Jesus was saying to take care of orphans. In other words, take care of all their needs until they are able to take care of themselves, or continue to care for them even if that never happens. It wasn't about filling the bin with toys at Christmas time, providing a few peanut butter and jelly sandwiches during summer months, or even coaching a team. All of these things are wonderful, but they don't get at the root of what Jesus was really speaking about. The homeless account for an estimated 7% of the population here in Puget Sound area. Even if they were able to do what we do, there are so many barriers in place that it's just short of impossible for them to get along. What I'm getting at is many are not capable of doing exactly what we do, getting a job, saving money, getting themselves a place of their own, and moving forward in life. I believe there's a small population of this group of people that simply don't want to move forward or simply don't want to put forth any effort. However, I believe the vast majority of these people we find homeless in our city and in our society, they simply don't have the ability to do what we do to get along in this modern world. This isn't a new problem. It isn't simply an epidemic of the modern age. Oftentimes, it's put off on an already overburdened social system. Yet we can see all these combined efforts only scratch the surface of a much deeper problem. So what do we do? What can we do? What should we do? We are a people who call upon the name of Jesus. We have some very high biblical-based ethical values to live by. Not everyone else does. We have been given a very clear answer to the problem: us. We who call upon the name of Jesus are to care for the widow and the orphan, for those who for whatever reason cannot simply do what we do. We as Christians are to care for those who can't care for themselves for whatever reason. God didn't ask us to judge who deserves our help or why. Jesus instructed us to take care of the poor and the widow, the orphan, regardless of our opinions on the matter. Can you do that? Can I do that? The answer is yes. Of course we can. We should stop trying to force people in need into a mold that plainly doesn't work for them. We should practice pure and faultless religion. Hear what God said in the 27th verse, first chapter of the book of James. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Thank you.